Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight for another episode of Spanning the Need. Tonight, I'm having on the show a great comedian and a great guy, Chad Zumock, comedian and the host of the podcast, the Sit Down Zumock, a Bunch of B.S. podcast. Chad, always a pleasure.
Tony, it's been a long time. How are you?
It has been a long time. I'm thinking it's been 10 years at least since we probably at least bumped into each other.
When was the Funny Farm? When were those years when it was in Niles?
That would probably be 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
But I think I bumped into you a little bit after that in Cleveland at a comedy show one time. It's been a very long time.
Yeah. No, it's good to see you. I mean, I see you online. You're doing stuff, and you got your podcast going. So I'm happy. I'm happy for you, man.
I will never be as the best podcaster like you.
Far from it. I'm halfway retired. I'm in Florida. Okay, I pretty much I got 1 foot into. I'm done with this.
What do you mean? Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. Chad, why don't you? Some of the listeners may not know who you are, so talk a little bit about yourself, how you got into the comedy business, and kind of all the way up to where you are now.
Thank you, Tony. Well, I'm a failure. No. No, I'm a former Kent State graduate. I went to college for 7 years. I'm a general studies major, 2.4 GPA. So, kids, you can do whatever you want if you put your mind to it. And I said, I'm going to be a comedian. Whee! And then I took this dumb journey, and now I'm 17 years in. I've been, just grinding it out on the road. I've had some ups and downs, some success, some heartbreak. It's just been a weird journey, and this craft of stand-up comedy has been my vehicle that takes me everywhere, whether it's a writing job, a radio gig, or a commercial, a movie. It's always taken me somewhere, so I just continue the path. Now I'm living in Florida because I don't know if you know this, Tony, but there's a global pandemic, and it's called COVID-19, which is a bad name for a disease. It's very dumb. Sounds like a breakfast cereal from Kellogg's. But it's the only disease that makes you fat and turns you into an alcoholic. That's a fact.
Well, in a short play, I think a lot of people may have gained remember, it's like the freshman 15. Now It's probably like the COVID-19 or COVID-20.
I am 20 pounds overweight exactly from this. So thank you COVID-19.
Well, I don't think you're 20 pounds over.
No, I weigh. I know my weight. I'm just telling you the facts. And plus, I'm in my 40s now, so the metabolism. I used to bounce back. I go to the gym, play some basketball, ride the bike. It's not like that anymore. It's over. So you gain it.
Well, I'm 40, and my wife yells at me. My wife yells at me because I can eat like a M&M Blizzard, like a large, and lose weight.
Yeah, I eat M&M Blizzard. I gain 80 pounds.
Only 80?
That's it. Yeah.
What can we say? Medium. Oh, medium size.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and let's talk about kind of your going through your career and kind of you come from Kent State, which has really.
I'll put my mask on so you don't catch anything.
I would hope not, since I'm in Ohio.
And I'm in Florida.
Yeah,
everything is open for business, baby.
How is that going down there? Is it awesome? Really people wearing masks, stuff like that?
Yeah, they're still wearing masks, but I left. I was actually, full disclosure, I was out with a lady, and I looked at the time. It said 6:30. I'm like, oh, I got to do a podcast at 7. So I closed out the tab real quick. I left her where I was to come here to do this, but the restaurant bar was full capacity. But social distance, mask, all that, whatever.
Well, in Ohio, we're still at that phase of social distancing, capacity, and stuff like that, where no one really wants to get out of their house. They all like deliveries.
It's every state's different, and I don't know. Listen, I don't know where your audience sways. I'm not a political guy. I never have been. I've been paying attention, but I do believe this has been politically driven, my opinion. Sorry, I'm a comic. I'm supposed to have opinions.
Oh, yeah. At least you're wearing the right hat.
Yes. Everyone's, oh yeah, all you fake Clevelanders who are celebrating LeBron's Lakers championship. He doesn't play for the Cavs. He plays for the Lakers. Okay, he won it for Los Angeles, not Cleveland. So I want to remind everyone, this was the championship, 2016, where LeBron left the Cavs. He's no longer with the Cavs. So go celebrate the Lakers championship. I'm going to celebrate the Browns being 4-1. How about that?
Hey, I'll take it. I will take 4-1. And I'm a diehard Cleveland fan, and it's great to see us 4-1. Now, I have to ask this. You did a video a while back ago. I don't know how many years ago with this, that you were yelling at a stadium. I don't know if it was the Cleveland Stadium. Am I right? Or
that's Mike Polk. You got the wrong guy. He was my roommate for a couple of years, and we were in a sketch group.
But didn't you work with him on that?
No, I mean, Mike and I worked together for so many years. We did so many videos. We had a public access show. We had a sketch show. We were in a sketch group. So Mike and I, we were so at one point connected that people mistake what he did, what I did. And, that's all him. It's called The Factory of Sadness. So that's all Mike Polk. And we've done shows together. We split headline in Youngstown once. I forgot where, but.
Yeah, I remember Polk very well. And I remember watching both of you at that. It was a funny video. And it was funny because one thing that I laughed at, I remember the most, was that when you came down to Youngstown, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were featuring for Basil.
Probably. That sounds about right.
And he's like, where'd you go to school? And you said Kent State. And he was like, Kent, can't read, can't write, Kent State. And I'm like, oh, I never heard that one before.
Oh, I grew up with that. That's almost like a hack line.
Well, it's like I know. It is. It's one of those things. And so let's talk about your journey through this. You've had some ups and downs, and talk about some of your experiences that you've had that maybe weren't up to what you really wanted.
Well, the one thing I've learned being where I am today, and I still have a long way to go, hopefully, we'll see, is you don't know what, and I don't want to sound cliche like I'm a card, you don't know where this is going to send you. At any given moment, life's going to change. Whether you're in a relationship, a job, you just don't know where you'll end up. If you were to ask me 2 years ago, I'd be in Tampa, Florida, living here. I'm like, for what? When? How? And it's just because the journey takes you places, and you just kind of capitalize on opportunities. You meet people, global pandemic. And, with that being said, I almost feel at times I'm almost like a Forrest Gump. I've been a part of some amazing situations. I've been meeting the craziest people you can ever meet. Like, I've met all my idols. I've been in, I mean, I'm not thinking of, for instance, I'm just thinking of like all this amazing things that have happened to me. So you just don't know what's going to happen, is what I'm trying to say. Well,
and you started up in Northeast Ohio, and you've bounced a bunch of different good places. Like you said, Kent State had a variety of comedians come out of there that people may not realize.
I hang my hat on that, and I got a name drop because I lived in Los Angeles I started in LA. I started stand-up. I started comedy in Cleveland and Kent, but I moved to LA because I moved there for a girl, my ex-girlfriend, Sarah, and we broke up 2 weeks into me living there. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I used to go to the comedy club and sit in the back, and I would just drink and drown my sorrows. It was like 2004, 2005. At the time, Dane Cook was very popular. And the general manager, Rita, who's still there, she's from Cleveland. So she felt bad for me. So she used to pick up my tabs every night, and give me food. So I'd watch these comedians go to the stage and kill, Jim Gaffigan, Dane Cook. I mean, I saw them all, Daniel Tosh, and I go, I want to do that. So I went to an open mic the next day at the Ha Ha Cafe, threw down $5, did 5 minutes of stage time, bombed. And I said, I love that. I want to do it again. I just did it every single day after that. And I moved back home. And from there, I just became I had to get on stage. I was like one of those guys. I was optimistic. I wanted to drive, and I wanted to make this happen. And then 17 years later, I'm like, this is stupid. What am I doing? Grow
and you're
up.
still doing it.
Get a job. Grow up. It's
Well,
done.
you are
The
growing
dream's
up.
dead.
No,
I know, but I'm just saying in the sense of,
yeah.
let's get some responsibilities. I mean, you're married. Come on, Chad. Let's get a mortgage going here. My friends at my age, they have mortgages. They're thinking about they're thinking about like what they should do for their kids' future. I'm thinking about what I would do if I was on The Walking Dead. That's what I do during the day. I'm like, of course I'm going to buy a crossbow, a motorcycle, and I'll go to the mountains and I'll figure it out. That's what I think about every day.
Yeah, they got the best. You can learn if there is an apocalypse. You learn it all from The Walking Dead.
That's all. This whole crisis, I've learned everything from The Walking Dead. In fact, anybody I see with COVID, I just jam them in the head with a spike because that's how you take care of it. It's a global virus. I don't know if your listeners are prepared for me. I don't know if I'm your cup of tea. I don't know if I'm your quality guest. I think don't you have like senators and mayors on here?
Yeah, so I got to throw them a bone every once in a while. Hey, you know what? It's funny because I've talked to a variety of guests and we're always having a good time no matter what we're doing or no matter who's on. It could be the person donating their time in the area, or it's people just like you that are good at what they do and have a story to tell. And I know what you're probably going to say, but you do have a story to tell, and I want people to understand that what you do have ups and downs, but at the same time, at the end of the day, you enjoy what you want to do.
Yeah, I've been very blessed and fortunate enough to not really have a job and to be creative and have fun and somehow manage to make a living out of it. So yes, there's pitfalls and there's upsides, but I don't know. I never took myself too seriously. I think in this business, if you really even if I was at my peak or I had my height, I realized right around the corner there's gonna be a downfall. You know what I'm saying? I never got too high, never got too low, if that makes sense. Like when I did,
yeah, it does.
I did my first TV appearance on Access Live, Gotham Live, and it was hosted by Norm Macdonald, who's an idol of mine. And Bill Burr just hosted Saturday Night Live over the weekend, and I
saw that,
which was amazing. And I know Bill. I mean, we're not very good friends, but we know each other. And I was thinking to myself, and Bill's a fantastic comedian. If he's not in your top 5, he's definitely in your top 10. He's that good of a comic. And I saw him come through the Saturday Night Live doors, and I go, that's so iconic. And I know what's going through his mind in a sense of as a comic, because when I did get Gotham Live, which was live TV, and Norm was the host, the whole time you're like thinking, like, what the hell is happening right now? This is surreal. It's almost like an out of body experience. And I prepared for that set, and the whole time I was on stage, like when it was over, I go, what just happened? I don't even know what happened. So I can only imagine Bill, who's been, he headlined Madison Square Garden. He's done a million things. He's not even the same ballpark as me, but he probably said, like, what? I just hosted Saturday Night Live, the same doors Eddie Murphy came out of, Carlin, like you can think of all the greats. So, what was my point? I don't remember. I'm just rambling at this point.
No, but I think it understands that there's a lot that goes into being a comedian, and it's not that you just get up on stage and just come up with material. You got to practice it.
Tons of rejection. It's honestly, you got to be mentally tough. It's a journey for sure. Some people luck out and they get stuff early, but for the most part, like a guy like Bill Burr was a road warrior. Like he was out there grinding, staying in the comedy condos, featuring for people, driving 50 miles for $50, he did it all, colleges, campuses, and now he's hosting Saturday Night Live. So he is the true success story of what we do. And, I've had little things, little nuggets, never hosted Saturday Night Live, but I had the TV stuff. I got to be in a Netflix film, but nowhere close to, he's in The Mandalorian on Disney. Come on. That's all you need to know. He's in Star Wars. Wars and Saturday Night Live.
You have a little recognition. The Sweater Vest Army.
That was a thing at one point, yes.
Talk a little bit about that. People, you can probably resemble a couple people.
Well, through my journey, if you will. We kind of pick up things and we lose them. And at one point, I wore a sweater vest every time on stage for about 8 years and became a thing. And why I wore the sweater vest, because I'm just some average looking white dude. But when I put a sweater vest on and I do well, I'd hear people after shows going, that kid in the sweater vest was hilarious. So I was like, that's my distinguished feature because I don't have anything else going on. And I kept wearing it and it became a thing. But if for anybody from Northeast Ohio, and if you're an old school sports guy or Youngstown, realize the original sweater vest guy was Jim Tressel, like the Ohio, I think he's still in Youngstown, right? Doesn't he?
He's the president of Youngstown State University.
So I was wearing, so for years people were like, oh, you're just trying to copy Jim Tressel. I was like, no, this is my own thing. So one of my favorite things, and you can listen to it on my second album, which is called Adventures in Argyle. The last track, it was from my old radio show on WMMS. We interviewed Jim Tressel, and I have the track. It's time-stamped, and I go, Jim, Mr. Tressel, who is the originator of the sweater vest, me or you? And he said, me. I have it. It's from his mouth. It's recorded forever. He said that in 2011, so I came up with it. So everyone that says I'm a hack, I'm the guy who came from Jim Tressel's mouth. So screw you.
There you go. And I think, and it's funny because he really, you guys, both of you, and I know that because I've seen you work and booked you on a lot of different stuff, is you both wore the sweater vest pretty well.
First of all, thank you for booking me when I was a young comic. I do appreciate that, Tony.
Well, you were better than what you thought.
Well, thank you. I still think I'm terrible, but thank you. No, but going back to what we were saying, what's interesting is like when Jim left Ohio State, however you want to, he just got rid of the sweater vest. When I left WMMS, I did the exact same thing. We wanted to move on and do something different. It was almost like that sweater vest. I know he started at Youngstown State, but he went to Ohio State, became bigger than what it was. And he wanted a new journey. He wanted to do a new path. And when I got fired from MMS, that became a part of MMS in Cleveland so much. Like Chad, sweater vest. I do events and people would show up in sweater vests. It was crazy. Like we did a bar crawl. Everyone was wearing sweater vests. It was like, so I had to get rid of it and move on. I had to rediscover myself and try something different. So me and Mr. Tressel can relate to moving on.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's funny because you mentioned 2011, and it's funny because you were actually mentioned by Cleveland Magazine as the most eligible single in 2011. I could see that one.
I will tell you something about Tony Spano. This guy knows how to read a Wikipedia. This guy knows his shit.
Well, actually, I didn't read it from there. I got information.
Oh. Yeah, it was
Google helps. Google helps.
I don't know. It was one of those things. I was on the Cleveland radio, and those local zines and magazines tend to like gravitate towards like people on the radio or TV, and it is what it was. Interesting enough, that was like the year, like you think you're like in some magazine, some big deal. That was like the worst year of my life of meeting girls. When I was the most eligible single. Everything after that was fine, and before that was great. But that one year was just like, what's up? What's going on, ladies? I'm eligible. And nothing.
Well, so let's go back to, and I think you were gonna mention some names, but then you got sidetracked. Is who are some of the good comedians that came out of Kent State?
I put it in my bio. And here's another name drop. Arsenio Hall. We all know Arsenio Hall. I got a chance to hang out with him backstage at the Comedy Store for a long time. And we just talked about Kent State and comics. And he told me some amazing stories. And, he gave me his phone number, which was crazy. And we started talking about the comic scene alumni out of this small mid-American conference town, this small MAC school that produced the likes. And here's some of the names, some of the marquee names. Steve Harvey, Family Feud, Comedians of Comedy. Arsenio Hall. Michael Keaton was originally a comedian. Batman. He was originally a comedian. Drew Carey. How did I forget that one? I mean, He had his own TV show. Those are some of the big heavy hitters. And then you got guy like comics like Tammy Pescatelli, who you booked before, Last Comic Standing. And you got a comic who I grew up with, Ryan Dalton, who's been on Sullivan and Son, Steve Byrne, who has a movie coming out. He's, done stuff with Vince Vaughn. You got John Caparulo, who has his own network deal. The list goes on and on. Like, there's so many great comics that come out of there. And, it's interesting is like, I didn't go there for comedy. I wanted to be a basketball coach. I wanted to play basketball, and I fell into it. And, I think a lot of comics that went there, they didn't want to do comedy. We just fell into it. So I don't know if it's I would love to do a documentary about Kent State and comedy. I think there's something there. I think it'd be interesting. So I think when I was talking to Arsenio, I was hoping he would we should produce this. Instead, he was just like, hey man, yeah, we did go to Kent. Bye, and left.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I mean, Northeast Ohio, or at least this part of it, Ohio, Pennsylvania, kind of Kentucky and Indiana, had some really good local regional comedians that were well followed.
No, there's great comedy because there's so many comedy clubs in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So you could be one of the reasons why it took me so long to leave and to come back is because you could be a working comic within Indiana. You got Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia. I mean, you can drive to these clubs, and there's so many of them. And you could be a full-time working comic, and that's what's attractive. So I think that's why a lot of great comics come out of this area. And plus, it's the Midwest. We're hungry. We're trying to figure it out, and it drives you. It pushes you.
Now you're in Florida.
Now I gave up. No, Florida. Listen, I was living in Los Angeles. I was moving to New York, and this all happened in the move. And I was actually emceeing for Louis C.K. in Omaha, and I come to Ohio for like a month, and I'm like, I'm not moving to New York. I'm going to Florida. I've always loved Tampa. There was an opportunity there. I love the comedy club. I love the morning show here. I love the scene. And plus, it's warm weather, no state tax. Now I look like a genius. Everything's open. I get on stage. I got friends from New York and LA texting me like, dude, I work every weekend. So, and I'm coronavirus free for everybody out there.
You're not holding back on us, right?
Yes. I'm not a spreader.
Well, and actually, tell us some of the highlights of your career that you've done in the past, and that maybe there's possibilities that you're behind the scenes been doing since COVID. Because COVID, there's not much people have done because comedy shows and comedy businesses have pretty much been shut down.
Repeat that, like highlights of my career or highlights of stuff I'm doing now, or both?
Highlights of your career and what's coming next.
Oh, okay. I've had some amazing benchmarks, just things. Obviously, I don't know. This is just, there's no frame of reference now. Getting to headline the Denver Comedy Works, Hollywood Improv, getting to perform on the main stage of the Comedy Store and bringing Joey Diaz to the stage. I'm just saying stuff. Opening for Daniel Tosh, who was a big influence of mine. Having David Tell say I was hilarious to my face. Doing Gotham Live and Norm Macdonald bringing me to the stage and then getting applause breaks in a legendary New York comedy club. Going on one of my favorite radio shows, Bennington. Becoming friends with Anthony Cumia on the Cumia Network, which I do. Starting a radio show on MMS from nothing when we're playing music, and it's still going on. I don't listen, but just making it into something, and to bring local comics from Northeast Ohio onto that show to fight for, and that still be a thing. The list goes on and on. I can't think of a, for instance, or just me talking to Arsenio backstage at the Comedy Store. He was one of the originals. He was in Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. So he had his own show on network TV that was legendary and iconic. So, I got to do some really cool stuff, performing at the Comedy and Magic Club and having Paul Reiser bring me to the stage.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, so I mean, there's like so many, and unfortunately, he's I guess canceled Chris D'Elia putting me in a Netflix film and getting me paid. Going on tour with. I mean, I there's so much stuff. Jim Florentine, great comic. Doing a million amazing things. I don't know. I can't name one. I'm just thinking as I go. So
There's nothing wrong with that. Well, but you've experienced a lot and learned a lot, and just really talking with those guys and getting to know them, giving you a variety. Like you said, the guy gave you great. Say, hey, you were funny as hell, and that just probably gives you more confidence moving down the road.
When Dave Attell, who wrote one of the greatest comedy albums of all time, Skanks for the Memories, watches your set because he's going on in two comics. You were hilarious. I love this one joke. I'm like, what? You just said that to me? Like, because you don't understand how much that was influential, how much that was in my DNA, and how much I've bit off of you in your joke process and how you write jokes and how much you inspired me. It meant the world to me. And then, like 2 years later, I'm walking down the street with a comedian named Kevin Brennan, and David goes, "Hello, Kevin. Hello, Chad." I'm like, "You know my name. You know my name." Imagine your heroes knowing your name, So that was cool within comedy. So I've had other experiences otherwhere, maybe I'll write a book someday that no one will read.
Well, everyone's reading nowadays in the pandemic.
Maybe I'll put it on TikTok.
Oh, there you go. 15 every chapter is 15 seconds.
That's where we're going as a society. Attention spans are getting smaller, so.
Well, my attention span's been like that for years anyway. So what's the point?
I'm gonna put.
Why can't I invent it?
I'm gonna write a 600-page book with one word on every page. TikTok book. It's called TikTok. Chad Zumock
There you
story.
go. Well, and I think that that's well, and I think weren't you a writer on the roast of William Shatner?
That was another one. I forgot about that because I was a young comic and MySpace was the thing, right? And Jeff Ross, Jeff Ross kind of reached out because he saw me perform, and a couple other people would say, "Hey, you guys got any jokes? I'm writing for this roast." So I gave him a bunch of jokes. I was eager, So I watched all those old Dean Martin roasts, and I watched
those were funny.
Yeah, and I just so I started writing. Excuse me, I have COVID. Kidding. So, excuse it, Grandma. Sorry. Good night. I'm kidding. So I just start writing jokes, and he liked them, and he goes, "How much you want for these?" And I go, "I don't know." I was like, "Whatever." He's like, "What if I got you a Comedy Central credit?" And at the time, I'm like, "Yeah." And that's how I got on Comedy Central credit. So yeah.
Did he use most of or all of your jokes?
He used like 4 of them, but it was cool. Like, I was like, it was my first writing credit. I'm like, wow, I wrote for Comedy Central. It wasn't the ideal way of getting things done, but since Jeff executive produces those, he used it and it was cool. And, forever grateful. It's a credit. I'm on the DVD box. If you go buy the roast of William Shatner on your DVD, Youngstown, if you have DVD players, I'm on the box.
Well, I wonder why he's now on there every time, because he's an executive producer.
He's one. Well, we'll see if that goes on. If you do a Google search, we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Well,
2020.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Since everything has been, what have you been doing since the pandemic? Because comedy shows and businesses are closed. Like, what have comedians been doing behind the scenes? I mean, we know there's no shows. Well, maybe they're starting to pick up now because a lot of businesses are reopening, but they weren't doing much in March, April, May, and June.
Well, I've had it's weird. Like I feel like I'm the happiest person in a pandemic. I know a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are going through tough times and dealing with stuff, and I've been through but for some reason, everything's kind of worked out for me in this pandemic. And I'm not trying to in your face, because listen, I've had some tough times, but for some reason, everything's just kind of worked out with my move to Florida, where I've gotten writing gigs. I got a writing gig I can't talk about, but it's a huge moneymaker, a lump sum of money for this virtual thing that I'm doing. And I mean, I just lucked out. It just kind of fell into my lap because a comedian friend of mine, Godfrey, helped me out. And then I got gigs. I get gigs, and of course, all those years on the road, I just grinded. I just chased money every weekend. I didn't care if I was hosting, featuring, headlining. I just took the gig, and I would live like a nomad. I would just save the cash. I wouldn't spend. I was very frugal. I knew where to eat. I knew all this, everything. I just knew how to like navigate. So I had money saved and ready to go. And of course, my podcast, I do a thing on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Sit Down Zumock. I get money through that. I get money through Sound Exchange. So it's just kind of all worked out for me from all those years of grinding and not paying attention. But it also gave me a chance to reflect, sit back, and understand, okay, some of this is paying off. Some of it.
Well, and I think I think a lot of people have seen that since they've been in quarantine. Like they're spending time with their families. They're now just kind of taking a step back and doing a lot of different things from what they would normally not do.
Which is fine. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I, of course, don't have a family but if you do, it's a good thing. You can catch up with your kids, your wife, and just, figure out things, go for a walk, do whatever. But yeah, that 1 month, I was in Ohio for a month when this all went down, the lockdown. That's when The Last Dance was rocking with Jordan, which saved me. By the way, that was the best part of the whole quarantine was The Last Dance, in my opinion. And I used that time to write, and I was doing a lot of podcasting, and it was therapeutic. It was good. So there is some good coming out of it.
Now, are you married, girlfriend?
I'm married to 7 people. No, I have no. I think just because I've been so nomadic for so long doing the road, like I never wanted to drag a lady into the situation. And the reason being is it's a tough life. And being on the radio those 3 years, when you put yourself out there, it's hard. And you meet women or ladies, they feel like they know you and they act like they're cool with it, but they're not, because you get this unwanted attention online and on stage or whatever. And it's hard to deal with. And I always felt comfortable just being by myself and just doing whatever I wanted to do at any time. Like someone calls me tonight and they're like, dude, this weekend, let's go to Denver. I'm like, I can do it. I have money. And who do I have to tell? Like, I have no wife. I have no girlfriend, no kids. I like freedom. I enjoy freedom. And that's
just
why.
Your grandma in the other room.
Yeah, she has COVID now, so I don't know how long she'll be around. I'm just kidding. Sorry, listeners.
That's why it says comedian below, okay? Comedian
This
below.
guy's not funny. People are actually dying out there. Why would he say that about his grandma? Full disclosure, my grandma's dead. Just for the record, she already died, so she doesn't have COVID. Relax. It's, I wouldn't cough on my grandma. See, this is where we are in 2020. I have to explain on a Zoom podcast that was fake. I shouldn't have to do that.
I think so. People are so knit that they just, oh my God, you said the wrong thing.
Right.
I can only imagine what happens when we start getting back into these comedy shows and you guys are doing your jokes.
Well, going back to what Bill Burr earlier, he hosted Saturday Night Live, he's getting all this backlash. I'm like, Bill's been doing that since I met the dude. Nothing's changed. It's just, he calls out, you try to take horrible situations, horrible events, edgy situations, just try to make it funny, because we need to laugh. We need to laugh at all this craziness. And I don't care if you're left, right, in the middle, there is craziness going on right now, and you need to laugh at it because it's way too serious, and we need to take a second and realize the insanity and the ridiculousness of a lot of this. If you have common sense and if you can see through nonsense, there's a lot of it going on. So that's what I do. I take those weird situations that people might get offended, and I try to make it funny.
Well, hey, and that's, people sometimes just need a good old laugh. You know what I mean?
I mean, you worked in a comedy club for years. You get it.
Well, and I booked enough comedians to know who was funny and who wasn't, and then at the same time knowing what jokes that they're jokes. That's why you come to a comedy club.
Jokes. We're not trying to hurt people. We're out there trying to we want you to forget, laugh, and say that was fun when you leave. That's it.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do when you come to a comedy club?
You get it because you were in the business, but you'd be surprised. I did a show in Palm Harbor this weekend, and I made this joke about, I don't even know what it was about. It was about marriage. I don't want to give away the punchline, but I referred to O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown, and I got so many groans. I'm like, you realize how smart that was, how I just twisted it. And the whole bit was basically how, I'll give you the premise. I look at marriage like it's two people trying to outlive each other. That's all I look at it. You look at it as love. I look at like, who wins first? Who's going to survive that person? And then, OJ and them came into it, and go buy my album if you want to hear the punchline.
And there's been some other comedians and some other ones that have really towed that line too.
Sure.
And I think that's what, you want to push the edge. That's what you do.
Push the envelope. Take uncomfortable situations and try to make them funny. That's all this is, man. It's like we're up there. We have a microphone, lights, and words. We can't hide behind a bass or a guitar or a band. Like, we're just trying to figure it out. And, and if you have an opportunity to go to a comedy show, you should right now. Support live comedy, support local business. Are they doing live comedy in Youngstown right now?
I don't think so. I think we're still I haven't seen anything. I haven't talked to anyone, but I know probably about the beginning of October there was nothing open in that area because of capacity. You can only have a certain amount of people within a room and stuff like that.
Mike DeWine. There you go.
Well, he's a Republican, just like Santos is in Florida.
Yeah, why isn't he following with DeSantos? DeSantos is all in.
Well, he's like, let's spread the wealth.
Well, you know what? I think it's warm weather. I think, I don't want to get too political because I'm. By the way, there's too many comedians being very political, and they're idiots. They're morons. And I know enough to be informed, but I'm not going to tell you how to vote, what you should do. I'm not that comic. Okay, I'm a dummy. Like I said, 2.4 GPA, but I try to stay informed, and I do have an opinion. But it's my opinion. And if you have an opinion, I respect the opinion. Unfortunately, if you have opinion, they feel slighted. They feel like I unfollow you on social media. You're done. You're canceled. And we should have a conversation, right, left, middle, talk about it. Going back to what I was saying about DeSantos, we live in a warm weather state, and everything was on the decline, the deaths, the COVID, everything. So we got to eventually get back. The strands of whatever this is, it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So you got to eventually open things up. And I know Florida's the butt of every joke, but I don't know. Everything seems to be fine for us. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I know in Ohio, at least where I live, that everything has been increased, more cases, more hospitalizations and stuff like that. So I know at least where I.
No, sorry, Anthony. I will say this, like, I'm street smart. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a politician, by the way. And I don't know how, by the way, I can honestly say my own assessment of the situation is just as good as a politician. I read, I listen. Within my life, I've met a lot of people. I met a ton of people within comedy, whatever, just walks of life, my family. And I will say this honestly, with a lot of people, being a social person, being a public person, I've met I know probably about 10 people who got COVID. Out of those 10 people, one person died who was 96 years old. That's all I'm saying. Out of my little survey of people in my life, people they know, people I've heard from other people, one person who was 96 died. And that's throughout the country, not just Ohio, all over. So I like my survey. I like it. 10 people got COVID. I think 2 of them felt deathly ill. Others said, it was fine. I felt bad for a day. Others I didn't feel anything. So I think it affects people different ways. And I also think we should live our lives. We shouldn't live in fear. Go live your life. Be safe, put on the mask, wash your hands, do whatever you got to do. But eventually we're going to start opening things up, man. We got to get out there. We got to live life. We can't just be in our homes watching Netflix and chilling.
But we'll watch you on Netflix.
What's that?
We'll watch you on Netflix.
You can see my arm in a movie where I play a paramedic. You can see my arm because they cut my scene, my talking scene. It's called Little Evil. But I got paid, so I don't care.
Even if they showed you a finger, you still got paid.
I got paid. I got paid.
Well, and it's funny because I think it's going to come down to that. It's going to come down that they're going to have to open up somehow, some way. I mean, they're opening up schools, and you just got to be safe. That's all. I mean, at the end of the day, you just got to be safe, wear the masks, social distance, and go from there. I mean, it's plain and simple.
Unfortunately, it's been very politicized with state to state, and I mean, we have state politicians making $200,000 a year with their free housing, telling us how to live our lives. And here's the thing about Ron DeSantis. Again, I said I wasn't getting political. Here we go. He deals with hurricanes and shit all the time. So I trust what he's saying. These state politicians, they're not science. They're just listening to people. Be safe. Like you said, just be safe.
Yeah. Well, I didn't vote for DeWine, but I like what he's done. I mean, because we actually had a Youngstowner who actually was the director of public health for DeWine, but she resigned and got forced out.
I know DeWine's being safe and he's playing it, Here's my thing. Why do bars close at 10 o'clock in Ohio?
I don't know.
Does the coronavirus come out at 10:05? Like what's that?
No, it's 10:01.
10:01. That's when the coronavirus comes out. So there's a lot of my friends who have local businesses within Northeast Ohio. Some of them, they're not opening again because of what happened, but yet Walmart, all these superstores, they continue to thrive and blow up. But the guy who owned his restaurant, it was his dream to own his restaurant. He got the loan, and now he can't open again because of this, how it was handled. How come he can not have like 4 people in his restaurant at a time during this? How come a guy cutting someone's hair not have, person by person within this? It was handled so poorly. It could have been handled so much differently, but unfortunately we live in a land of lawsuits. So I guess this is what it is.
Well, I think that they didn't know what they had at the beginning, but at the end of the day, they know what's going on now.
Yeah. In the beginning, you're 100%. We didn't know, but now we do. Because at first we're like, let's not overcrowd the hospitals. Okay, well, they're not overcrowded. So what are we doing now? What's the game plan? Where are we going? What's the end game?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that 10 o'clock because you could serve food, but you can't serve alcohol.
Which is so stupid.
Well, and I understand the sentiment that says, hey, we don't want bars to get crowded. Okay, that's not a problem. Sure. All you got to do is use the capacity limit that you put in reference to restaurants. You said they only could be 50%, then your bars can only be 50%.
I agree. So let me ask you about protest, parades, rallies. Like, what are we doing there? Like, what's the story there? Like, I put out a tweet that was very controversial. It's like, because the Los Angeles Lakers just won the NBA championship, and there were riots going on in LA, like people getting shot. I go, all riots and parades and protests must be at 25%. That's the rule. But it's like, you're fucking, I'm sorry. Damn it. I'm a comic. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, you're ruining local business, man. Like these poor people out there. I mean, it's just, I feel, and Youngstown already had it hard, man. Come on. I used to have a joke in my act. I go, Youngstown looks like the city from a superhero movie and the bad guy won. I will destroy your city. No sequel. Youngstown looks like they got to 1998 and they said, you know what? Screw it. We're staying here. You're in a hot town when VCR repairman's still a relevant job. Those were my jokes about Youngstown. And this was 10 years ago. So what's going on in Youngstown now? And I love you, Youngstown. I love Youngstown. I love Northeast Ohio. I love the song Youngstown by Bruce Springsteen. I don't want you guys to go out of business.
Well, when in the last 5 to 7 years, downtown Youngstown has started to be a college town.
Good.
It has started to really come back. Businesses, restaurants downtown.
Good.
Uh, it was always the notion that, well, why, like, the people that were in their young professionals, a little bit older, that went downtown 10 years before that said, why should I go downtown? There's nothing there. But didn't realize that, well, look at now they're going downtown. They're going to the Cavelli Center for these big shows, Carrie Underwood, Journey, all these types of sold out shows. And it's now bringing people. And it's funny because people will say, well, I don't want to go down to downtown. Oh, that's crime. But then my comeback is if you really look at the crime stats, downtown Youngstown is the safest place in the city of Youngstown per stat.
Right. Last time I was in Youngstown, I'm not joking. It was I saw Guns N' Roses. What's the venue you got? The venue, the indoor venue?
Cavelli Center, well,
Oh,
which would have been I think it was the Chevy Center,
yeah,
Youngstown
Cavelli Chevy.
Convention.
And
Yep.
it was before Slash and Duff reunited with Guns N' Roses. That was the last time I was in Youngstown.
Wow, that's really pushing it.
Yeah.
Well, it's now becoming more of a college town, a great
Good.
young professional. Now with COVID, I think it really puts a damper in the downtown now.
Sad, man. It's really sad. I mean, I wish these politicians would really focus on local business instead of Walmart. And I understand there's lawsuits and all that, but there's a way, like I get my place before this all happened. I get my haircut at this place in Tampa. You're allowed one person in the store, like at a time. One, so you schedule appointments. You could have did that the whole time, and wear a mask, wear gloves, or whatever. And you could have did that with the restaurants. Had like 4 people within. Just I don't know. There's other ways to do things, but I'm splitting hairs.
Well, I think you talk to a lot of these politicians. I've talked to them on my podcast and off record, and they're on the same that, hey, we would do things differently. They'd be doing things differently. They'd be looking at things with an open mind because, I mean, you didn't know in the beginning that, hey, we're shutting down because we don't know where this is going. Now there should be a little bit more education that's out there. But like you said, I'm not a politician. I'm not a infectious disease guy. I just listen to Fauci.
But I don't listen to him at all, for the record. I think that guy's a political puppet. That's just my opinion. I think just judging from doctors and people I know, I really do believe the strand of what if this thing is, it affects people differently, and it's been weaker and weaker and weaker as things go. There's going to be herd immunity at one point, but I think you just got to get out and live your lives. I mean, there's been so many viruses throughout. What was the one on Obama's clock?
H1N1.
H1N1. So there's other, this one might have been like you got to live your life and move on. And I don't know.
Well, COVID's a little bit more, they
Sure.
say is more than H1N1. I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to get through this together somehow, some way, and we just need to figure out how that's going to be.
Yeah. And whatever happens November 3rd, I hope we can move forward.
I agree because I'm sick of the political commercials.
Everything. I mean, it's just all nonsense. I never was political ever, but I had to learn because I was forced. Tony, I miss not knowing my state governor or my state mayor. I don't want to know who Florida's mayor is or governor. I don't want to know who the mayor or governor of Florida is. I want to be dumb. I want to be ignorant, but I have to know this stuff now. And I don't like it because I don't like these people. I think politicians are corrupt. They all borrow money. They're all paying their friends favors. I think it's all nonsense. And you guys aren't cool. Politics isn't cool. None of it's cool.
Not anymore.
It's not cool. So why are we always talking about it? You know what was cool back in the day? Van Halen. Shout out Eddie Van Halen. That was cool.
Who just passed away.
Iconic Eddie Van Halen. I want to go back to what's cool, and politics isn't cool, whether you're right, left. And if you're passionate about Trump, if you're passionate about Biden, they don't care. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They don't care.
Exactly. Well, you know who was cool? Remember, there was a video on TikTok. The guy was playing Fleetwood Mac, the song, with the grape juice.
Yeah.
Talk about a guy that just looks smooth, just going on his skateboard.
Yeah. And Fleetwood Mac's cool. Stevie Nicks is cool. Lindsey Buckingham's cool. Mick Fleetwood's cool.
Journey's cool.
Steve Perry's cool. The Filipino singer that replaced him on YouTube is cool.
That guy was good. Sounded almost just like him.
They're all cool.
Yes, they are. But let's talk about your podcast now. You got the Sit Down Zumock, a Bunch of B.S. podcast. Talk about how that got started.
I got fired from radio at WMMS, and I was lost. I was in a legal situation because of a DUI charge. I didn't know where I was going, and podcasting was a thing. It wasn't as big as it was now, as it is now, and I just started it up, and it became a thing, and I continue to do it. I've been inconsistent, but the last 2 years I've been persistent, and it's paid off because I've gotten amazing guests, really great big names for old school audiences. Like I got Starsky and Hutch, Paul Michael Glazer, David Soul. I got Eric Roberts. And when publicists and managers start reaching out to me, I go, okay, I'm doing something. And all it was is me and being consistent and persistent. That's all it was, because I'm an idiot. I think after this whole thing, you realize I'm dumb, but I stayed consistent. I stayed persistent, and now it's somewhat of a thing. It's nowhere near like Joe Rogan by any means, but it's a thing.
That's massive. Yours is massive too.
It's not massive. It's nice. It's good. I could pay all my bills with it. That's all I'll say.
I'm trying to help you here.
I know. I'm a really bad promoter. So let me go back to why I'm not successful.
Well, let me ask you this. One guest that was probably your best guest, who was it and why?
Chuck D from Public Enemy.
I
mean, icon, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, my idol. And I got to develop a relationship with him because he used to call on my old radio show on WMS. I reached out to his publicist, and we developed a relationship, and he's so smart about music, the landscape, and he knows so much about Cleveland because he has a lot of like a lot of connections here. In fact, one of the guys in his band's from Cleveland, so he knew what WMS was all about. So we just developed, he gave me his phone number. I would text him. So when I started the podcast, I go, I need a name. Boom. Chuck D delivered, and I could not be any more happier or humbled.
Well, and see and that shows that you were persistent and you did good at what you do.
I was persistent at one point, and now I'm not.
Okay, let's go through rapid questioning. One person you'd want on your podcast.
Anthony Spano.
That doesn't count.
Oh. The Beastie Boys or the remaining Ad Rock, Mike D.
Your mentor.
My big brother in comedy, Jim Florentine. He's the one comic who's been established who really gave a shit about me and really went out of his way to help me.
Best memory in your career.
Best memory was probably in my career.
Yeah.
Let's see. Man, I don't know. I've had so many ups and downs and crazy. I think doing the main stage at the Comedy Store last year, because Bill Burr dropped. Let's tie a bow. Bill Burr, who just hosted Saturday Night Live. I went to my friend who was booking a show in the main room. I went backstage. Her name's Sarah Mello. And we're hanging out. Bill Burr just canceled. I'm like, oh, people are here to see Bill Burr. Chad, can you go up? I'm like, wait, I'm replacing Bill Burr? Are you serious? So she's like, yeah. And I hadn't been on stage in like 3 weeks at that point. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'm good to go. I'm going through my notes. I'm on my phone. I go out on the main store, the Comedy Store. Richard Pryor, David Letterman, you name it, Robin Williams. And I'm there, sold out room, doing 10 minutes. And I'm doing okay. I'm doing good. Not bad. Definitely people are taking a piss break because Bill Burr's not there. And then I bring out Joey Diaz. That was probably the best memory in my comedy career. I got chills thinking about it because I was I can't believe I'm doing this. The whole time I'm like, what am I doing here? Why am I here right now? So,
Favorite comedy venue?
ooh, I don't have a favorite, but I'll name my favorites. Denver Comedy Works, because they were the first to headline me. Shout out Wendy Curtis. Omaha Funny Bone. Shout out Colleen Quinn. Side Splitters right here in Tampa. And I'm not saying that. That's one of the reasons why I moved here. I love the venue so much. And I love the owner. The old Bossa Vita in Lakewood.
Wow, that's way
117th, where we all wanted to get up at, but you felt like you did something. And shout out to the Pete at the Funny Stop in Cuyahoga Falls, where I've written pretty much every joke I've ever had being on that stage. Because the cool thing about the Funny Stop in Cuyahoga Falls is, like, I always knew I was going to get booked back, so I'd take chances and I'd come up with ideas that weren't even thought out. So that's how Side Splitters is for me down here. And I'll always be grateful to Pete at the Funny Stop if you live in Akron.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Pete in a long time. Still got his cell phone number in my phone. I haven't talked to him in probably 8 or 9 years.
I bet you can get him on the podcast.
Probably could. Very first comedy show that you were booked on?
Rathskeller, Kent State. It was my first time on stage. I was going through a weird Andy Kaufman phase, so I was very avant-garde and weirdo. I was still in college at the time, and I did the show. I bombed so badly I didn't do it again for like 5 years.
And now look at you now.
Then I performed at Champs in the Valley with Mike Polk, who did The Factory of Sadness, in a restaurant. I had no idea what I bombed again, and this was like 2002. Quit again, and then moved to LA and started back up again. 2004.
And then the last question I have is, what was your favorite driving distance road trip? And with which comedians?
Oh, man. I just did one. I did one with TJ Miller, like right when the quarantine happened. I drove from the Funny Stop to Cincinnati, and he paid me like $1,500 in cash.
Oh,
that was pretty cool.
I'll drive anyone for $1,500 from there to Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I've driven. 2 years ago, I was in 32 states. I've driven across this country 1,000,000 times. I've been in every freaking state. Man, I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, driving back and forth from Cleveland to Los Angeles, I've done that 1,000,000 times. To New York City, to Florida, to Texas. So, I mean, I don't know, man. They've always, and I got to be honest with you, some of it blurs together, and some of it might just be I'm so delusional and so jaded, I don't even remember.
Well, it's always fun because you do what you do, and you do it very well, and I know that from firsthand experience.
You've always been a good guy, and you gave me some of my early beginnings, so I'll always be grateful, and that's why I'm here right now. That's why I left a very, very attractive girl at the bar to do this. So I do.
Well, you should have brought her.
Yeah, she's fine.
You'll pick it up in about an hour or so.
It's, they come and go, Mr. Spano.
Mine came and stayed.
There you go. You won. You won the Matrix.
I did win the Matrix. Now she just yells at me every once in a while and calls it a day.
It's a good thing. Stability's good.
Yes, it is.
The one thing I've learned in the quarantine, I didn't do as much road work, and I got to do a normal routine, like going to the gym and grocery store, and I miss it. So it's cool.
Cool. Well, Chad, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and leaving the girl at the bar to come on to my podcast. I really do.
Yeah, when you put it out, tag me and I'll retweet it for you.
Real do it. Chad, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You're always welcome back on here in the future. Thank
you for everything, Tony. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Check out other podcasts and interviews at anthonyvspano.com. Be blessed. Have a great day and have a good night. Thank you.